My name is Britt Garner, and I'm an angel mom. I lost my 13-year-old. See, I can't get through this. Did hit and run on March 4th, 2011, and she passed away on March 5th. She left my house at 5:56 on March 4th, and it told me, "Love you, baby cakes. I'll see you in the morning." 1:35 on March 5th, I had a police officer, AM that is, on March 5th, I had a police officer ring my doorbell and ask me if I was Hadley Cave's mom. And I had said, of course, yes, and I was concerned about what had happened. They told me that she was involved in a hit-and-run automobile accident. I was of the impression at that point that she was in a physical car. She had went to stay all night with her girlfriend, was supposed to go see a movie. Being teenagers, we decided we were going to muddle that line. Said friend was staying all night at our house, she was going to stay all night at her house, and she was going to test the waters as to whether or not she could get away with a lie and be someplace else. So unfortunately, she wasn't with the parents. They had been walking on a road at 11, I think it was 11:35 that night. I'm not sure the time she was walking. That's actually when she was hit. She was struck from behind by a car, and the car had left the scene. My daughter laid on the side of the road in the rain, still alive, presumably. She was revived at the scene and then taken to Methodist. The cops then had us follow them to we followed them there to the Methodist Hospital, where I was later told that the thrust of the impact that struck Hadley snapped her brainstem instantly. But she was still, her heart was still beating. So it didn't quite sink in until I went screaming through the hallways and made somebody talk to me like I was 5 to tell me that she wasn't coming off that table. At 9:07 a.m., March 5th, 2011, my 15-year-old daughter was sitting on my lap. And she looks at her and she says, "Is it time, Mommy?" Because Hadley had been swelling because I kept fluids in her so I could harvest parts of her body. Which then somebody did receive a part of her heart, part of her retina, and some of her bone marrow, so she did go on to save other people's lives, 3 others to be exact, or I hope in their aid. And then Hunter went to the doctors and let them know that we were ready to shut the machine off on her. And at 9:07, my daughter took her very last beat of heart. Not knowing exactly what had happened that night, of course, social media had already ran away with my daughter's story for me. So learning that she was struck in a hit and run, I went to the rest of my next 4.5 years not knowing who hit her and not knowing what had happened, not knowing if I'm sitting next to the person who killed my daughter. Needless to say, you lose a lot of friends, you lose a lot of family members, you lose a lot of support through everything. You think that people come closer to you. That's not quite the case. My oldest daughter lost the mom that she knew, and I lost the daughter that I knew on top of my other one. So it's definitely an uphill battle, and it still is today. October 9th, she would have been 21 years old. I'm still struggling with that one myself, even right now, and clearly going into the holidays, I'm highly emotional. I think that pretty much so brings us up to where I think Chris was ready to speak. Sure.
Earlier in the presentation, Father Link mentioned that we're here to bring a face to, prison, to offenders, to crime. So let me be that face. I'm a guess, according to Father Link's new terminology, I'm a recovering brother. I'm an ex-offender. I served 5 months in prison. Probably should have served considerably more time than that, frankly. Through the grace of God and through some other events, I only served 5 months for a crime that was much, much more egregious than that. I want to talk a little bit about the experience and talk about what it's like for those that haven't been on the inside and haven't experienced it. It's a very sobering experience. It's painful. There's a lot of agony there. There's a lot of emptiness. But then on the other side of that coin is exactly what Father Link has been talking about, and that is a sense of love and a sense of brotherhood. You meet people inside that, as Father Link and I were talking in the hallway, everybody looks at the people on the inside and they think that they're all bad people and everyone that's in there is a bad person. And again, I'll put my face to it. I didn't grow up in the cracks. I didn't fall through the cracks. I grew up in a nuclear family. We were middle class. I didn't really want for anything. I kind of lived a good life. I didn't have a lot of hardship growing up. I'm not from the cracks or thrown into the cracks. I'm a pretty normal person that happened to, exactly as he said, make some very, very bad decisions. So for what will be 8 years, or what will be 7 years and 8 months as of tomorrow, I've lived with those decisions. I've lived with the consequence of the initial decision, and I've lived with the consequence of several terrible decisions that had taken place thereafter. So I'm a byproduct of those decisions. Every day when I was in the joint, as they like to call it, I dealt with the agony, the consequence, the mental anguish of those decisions. And there are many brothers and sisters on the inside that deal with those same consequences. Now, fortunate for me, I had already experienced, God, and I'd already come to God. You're going to see some faces in this video that a couple of them might be fairly familiar. That's because my daughter is here with me. My son is as well, and so is Hunter, Britt's daughter. And as you can see, they're friends. I was fortunate enough that I'd already experienced God and come to know God before my activities some 8 years ago. Thankfully, that built a foundation for me, and I was able to leverage that foundation and go to that love of God when I needed it to get me through the hardest times of life. A life that will forever be fractured and will never be whole again because of the actions that I took and the decisions I made thereafter. But I had that relationship with God, and it got me through. So let's talk a little bit about on the inside. On the inside, there are many brothers and sisters that need that relationship, and they did not have that relationship before their actions. And once they get inside and they have all the fringes and all the things that they used to have and all the distractions of their life stripped away, they need one thing, and they need God. And the only people that can really deliver that are us. They're brothers and sisters. So we can't look at all of them and say, well, they're bad people, and we just cast them aside. Father Link was telling me a very moving story in the hallway about, it's a long story about an incarcerated person who had passed away, and they were just going to mail the cremation ashes through the mail. And when long story, had a conversation with that person and basically said, I'm not going to allow you to do that because you can't mail the remains of a person through the mail. And they said it's not a person, it's an inmate or an offender. We can't have those type of attitudes, and that's what we're here for. We're here to stop that type of attitude. We're here to bring life and humanity to this system that oftentimes strips it away. So I can tell you from the inside what is needed and what is necessary, and that is our hearts, our love, and our conviction to our brothers and sisters, no matter the offense they've committed. Because we're not all bad people. We've done bad things. We've made bad decisions. As many in this room have, maybe not nearly as, severe as the ones that I have taken or some of the brothers and sisters that I've, spent time with in my time inside those walls. But we all have, and it's our duty and our obligation as humans to give that love back to these people and help them to understand that there is hope, that there is life on the outside, there is good that can take place. We have to minister that to them, and we have to bring that to them. So I'm going to turn this back over to Britt, let her talk a little bit more about her situation. Some of that situation, as you'll find, involves me as well. So, Britt?
I wasn't aware of the video behind me. That's Hadley, and Hunter's in mixed in there too. She was quite special. I found out shortly before would have been Hadley's 16th birthday. The person who had hit my daughter, which was this gentleman right here. And after finding that out, I had the cops come into the detective, I should say, came into my office after searching for him for quite some time, doing many, many newscasts and battling with all kinds of feelings that I'd had. Some where I wanted to know the answers and some where you don't want to know the answers because ignorance is quite bliss sometimes. However, it's much easier knowing. I will say it takes away a lot of the anxiety of standing in the grocery line wondering if it was you who hit my daughter that night, which creates a lot of anxiety when you're talking to people and you're not sure, strangers or whatever, when you're going through that long period of time. Not to mention your whole entire world stops. If anybody's experienced the loss of a child, your whole world stops. Grief is horrible. I've lost both my parents and I've lost brother. But I'm still stuck in 2011. And it was, it's been a horrible battle up till now, and it still is, but much easier at this point. Last September, not last September, but September before last, I had decided that I was done. I couldn't live with the pain of the loss of my mother. I couldn't live with the pain of the loss of my daughter. And physically, my body had gone through so many ailments. I was on 9 different meds to get out of bed. I almost lost my job several different times. Fortunately, I have very understanding bosses, but I suffer from fibromyalgia, I suffer from vertigo, I suffer from what's called complicated grief syndrome with extreme anxiety and PTSD. So those are some really fun things to have. And then you get into the whole spiral of meds. So in September, I was done. After that, I had a visit from my mom in my sleep, and she kind of thumped me upside the head and was like, "What are you thinking?" So through doing that, it would have been Hadley's angelversary, a couple days after her 6-year angelversary, I believe. 7-year angelversary, sorry. 7-year angelversary. I decided to message Chris Dymock on Facebook. It was the middle of the night, and I had probably not slept in probably 3 nights. And I guess it was early morning. Anyway, I would type out this long message, and it wasn't very nice because I was like, do you even know her name? Do you remember what you did? Do you know what tonight is? Do you know what just happened? Do you know how many years it's even been? And I asked several questions that my mind was just going crazy with. And I've done that several times before, but I never hit send. I hit send. And after I hit send, I sent another message saying, forget that, I should have never said anything, never happened, please delete. And tried to backpedal out of it very quickly because I'm like, I am not ready for this next step I just threw myself into. And then thinking, knowing how cowardly he had been, and knowing how he couldn't say my name, and knowing how he couldn't look at me in the courtroom, and knowing that through all of the process, I found him to be unremorseful and uncaring through the whole entire thing because he couldn't say Hadley's name, and I was called that woman. I wasn't a person. I was left without a name, and I found that very cold. And so I didn't think that he would even be brave enough to surely answer me back. So he did. And I was not happy about that. I won't lie for a second. I threw my phone on the counter and I looked at it and I walked away like it was going to attack me or something. For a long time, I just kept walking around staring at my phone like it was going to give me some sort of an answer. And he wanted to meet with me. Well, that posed a whole other problem in my life, but I was like, what do I do here? So I sat on it for a day or so, and I finally agreed to meet with him. And of course, family, husband, everybody was just like, you you can't go by yourself, you can't go by yourself. And then finally I was like, no, this is mine and this is my time. So I did, and I met him, and I let him have his say. And then I let him know what I thought of him and all the horrible things he's done, basically, just by not letting me know something so simple. Because you lumped me in with a bunch of people who you think is uncaring or that I wouldn't have understood. The night that Hadley was hit, it was pouring down rain. It was a highly blind spotted area. In the initial hit and run, he didn't know what he hit. So why didn't you come forward? Why didn't you say anything? And these are my questions, and these are what I needed to have answered. So I let him know several times how much of a coward I thought he was, and how much hell he had put my whole family, just by the mere not knowing and being able to direct my anger and everything I needed to direct to the right party. I severed several relationships because people get tired of hearing it after a while, and unfortunately, a grieving mom, we don't ever stop grieving. I choke on my daughter every day. I mean, you're seeing me emotional. This is nothing compared to how my nights go. My husband works nights. I literally walk my halls every night, and I go through my daughter's things every day. I still have everything all the way down to her last piece of chewing gum that she left on the banister. So yes, I can't let go, and I can't get past. So when I reached out to him, I knew that I needed to get off the side of the road, and I had to get out of the hospital, and I had to be able to look at Hadley's face and not see his, and realize that he's got his own issues that he'd have to deal with, but I need to quit worrying about him not getting enough jail time, or quit worrying about all the feelings I had towards him and anger and being upset, because they weren't helping me. They weren't helping me to remember my daughter in the light that I wanted to remember her in. Because as you can see, she's quite beautiful. And she was an amazing, amazing person. And she would have been an outstanding woman, no doubt in my mind. But I will segue back over to Chris.
So, my brothers and sisters, forgive me for I have sinned, for I have gravely sinned. For years, I wanted to step forward, and I wanted to make that outreach, and I was too big of a coward, as she said. And when that happened, and there's certain things where we have to know that there's divinity involved. I woke up at like 5 o'clock in the morning. That morning, I usually get up and do some pre-work for work early in the morning. And there's this message on Facebook. And it rattled me to my core to see it. So here's the crazy thing about life, and the crazy thing that we know when there's divinity involved. It's like 5 o'clock in the morning. She had sent the message at I want to say like 12:07 a.m. She would have no idea that I would be on at that time at 5 o'clock. She wouldn't be able to see my response, etc. She wouldn't know that I was reading it. So I think she had every expectation that I wouldn't respond because I was a coward. And so I responded pretty much right then. She responded right then. The sequence of events are they're outside of the realm of us as humans. I can now stand before you and say, this is my friend. This is my friend. We are friends. Her daughter, my son, the video that you saw earlier of people swinging, that's at Cedar Point this year. We all went together to Cedar Point, and they went in one of those swings together as friends. My point in all of that is really to talk about the grace that we're given, the fact that two people that have this incredible divide between us, something that no one in this room can really fathom and comprehend and put into the right capsule, because you can't experience it. You haven't. Hopefully you haven't. Dear God, pray that you never do. I can't imagine the pain that I've caused Britt, Hunter, their families. I can't tell you the pain and agony and the suffering, the torment that I've caused myself, my children, that they'll have to deal with for the remainder of their lives. But we're friends. And that's what this is really all about. We were able to put aside this incredible divide, and she's been able to show me the love and grace that I needed, and I've been able to return to her the truth, the reality of what has happened and who I am. And yes, I have no doubt that there were moments of absolute dread and hate, even that morning after sending that text or that message. But this is who I am. And I am a recovering brother. I did go away. I went behind the wall. I went in there because of what I did. But I like to think that I'm not a bad person. I like to think that I'm a pretty good person. I just made some dreadful decisions. So I hope that us coming together here and presenting to you helps you to see the importance of something like what the mission is here and what we have to achieve and what we have to accomplish, because it is hard. I'm fortunate in that I had a loving, faith-based church community in St. Jude that was there for me, that did not throw me to the wolves and did not castigate me and say, well, you know, they didn't know what I'd done. I'd been living as a sheep for years. They didn't know that I was really a wolf. But they didn't look at me and say, get away, wolf. They said, come in, let's help you, let's work for you. The man that I work for is a St. Jude parishioner. He didn't know I had done this. Nobody knew. There was really 4 people that knew. Well, there's really 2 people that knew this, myself and someone else. They were the only 2 people on this earth that knew it. My employer, when I got arrested, when I got out from the initial incarceration before you go to trial and all that stuff, I fully expected him to say, go away. Can't have you around. Instead, he tells my sisters, I need to talk to him. I said, I can't talk to him. The lawyers have told me I can't. He said, I have to talk to him right now. Get on the phone, fully expecting him to rip me to shreds. Instead, he says, I'm going to give you your computer back. I need you to get this work done. This is what we're all about. This is our community right here. This embodies it all. This brings it all together right here. I mean, this is the message. This is the love, the compassion that we have to be able to give out and in turn make society better. I'm going to give back the remainder of my life, my time here on this earth, to the cause. I'm going to try to make society better. I hope that I've made Britt's life better. But that's my mission, and that's where we need to come from, is that rooting. So that's what I hope that this presentation gives you hope for, to see it in practice, because this is really it. So thank you. I love you. I love you. And I love you. And I love all of you. Thank you.